Okay, we can all agree, and we're probably tired of hearing that the world is changing. We all know that. But what most entrepreneurs aren't asking is, how is the world changing in the environment of online business? When we look at the world is changing. People are craving and wanting different things, but are you adapting to what those are inside of your marketing, inside of your launches, inside of your selling, inside of your business? Well, if you're not, today's episode is going to blow your mind because I have a special guest on to talk about all the things you should be incorporating right now to be adapting to the changes we're seeing in the world and to online business. So keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today is going to be an amazing episode because we have an amazing guest. I will bring the guest on in a minute, but we're going to be talking about the way launching and selling online has been shifting over the last year, and it has been shifting a lot for a lot of different reasons. Number one, the pandemic has forced a lot of people online, which is great because we have a lot more customers now, but it's also causing an oversaturation. It's causing a difference in what people are looking for when it comes to building connections online. There's a lot of different things shifting, and we recently just wrapped up one of our best launches we've ever done. And we tried a completely new style of launching that incorporated way more connection, way more authenticity, way more shifting of perspective, and allowed us to go really deeper on issues. And we saw our highest EPLs, we saw our biggest conversion rates, and a lot of different numbers as well. And so today, I wanted to bring James Wedmore on because he has actually been using this style of launching a year before we have. And I know he's continuing with it. In fact, he's the person who kind of pushed me into this style of launching, and I'm so grateful for it. So today we're talking all about selling online, the shifts we're seeing online, and how to incorporate all that into your business. So James, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, three-peat. I think it's your third time on the podcast.
Yeah, I think you've been on mine 3 times.
Yeah. Three-peat. I think you're the most returned guest onto the podcast, so I'm glad to have you back. Yeah, and thanks, I do want to talk about a lot of the shifts and stuff that are going on in the launching world, or in I guess just selling online in general.
Sure.
But let's talk about where most people are right now, because I know you work with a ton of students building their businesses online, and I know you have thousands and thousands of students. So from your perspective, what are some of the things that people are doing today that they've just been doing for the last 5 years that you have noticed kind of like are becoming a little bit less and less effective?
Well, yeah, I kind of want to answer this question a little differently, because as we're talking about shifts and changes, I at the risk of taking a contrarian view for a moment, and hopefully people will just hear me out, there's actually such a constant of some things that are not changing, that haven't changed, that won't change. And there's that word principles, or principle. And a principle is defined as an unwavering truth. It doesn't change. And I look back at things I was doing 15 years ago, and it's what like direct marketers were doing 100 years ago, and there's this through line of consistency, of principle. And I want to get into that today. And then it's kind of, in a way, the veneer that changes. And so I like to use metaphors as an example that usually relate to my everyday life. And right now I'm going through this crazy remodel. And so what I'm kind of talking about is interior, as it can be used as like interior design. Okay. So if you were to go and become an interior designer, you would understand that there are certain principles that have never changed. Like, these colors go great together. These textures match with this, and you don't want to do this with that. And I've like learned a lot of these things, it's like, no, you don't want to put too many colors here. You want that pop color there, and da-da-da-da-da. And those are principles. Like, someone could have learned that 30 years ago. And it still applies today.
Yeah.
But interior design, there are trends and styles that go in, and just like so many other things that go in to fashion and out, right? And so why I wanted to start there is hopefully we can talk to some of these unwavering things, but those principles have never changed. Okay, those, I have not had any experience of that changing. The principles around selling and marketing, and I can get into some of those in a moment, haven't changed. But it's the maybe the trend, the style, or the way in which it's executed and implemented will always continue to change. And why I wanted to bring that to your attention is we have to be playing from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
We have to understand the foundational principles at play,
yep, and
be willing to mold or adapt to new ways of delivering and expressing those principles. Okay, so I wanted to start with that.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Is it fair to say that some of those principles are in higher demand over others now? Or
that's a really great question. Yeah, I think so. So let me give you an example of one of these principles I'm talking about. I'm going to call it, excuse me. It's been called the principle of authority, or the principle of preeminence,
mm-hmm.
Which is this notion. I mean, this has been studied. This has been proven that when someone is looking for help, they have a question, they want advice, they will only give money to, let's just go to that point. They'll only give money to someone that if in their mind, it's already been decided that they're an authority.
Mm.
Right? You're not going to go get coaching or have someone solve a problem for you that you don't believe can actually solve the problem for you, period.
Right.
Okay. It's just not going to happen. So that's an example of something that ain't going away, folks. That's just not going away. There's just no way where people are suddenly going to be like, you know what? I don't care that you have no experience, that you haven't helped anyone. You don't really care about helping me. Here's my money.
Right.
So, but then what you're bringing in, which is a really great way to look at it, is like, are some of these becoming more important? And if we look at our basic, like, let's say Econ 101, mm-hmm. The supply and demand curve. So if there's more demand and less supply, then this becomes something very important. In other words, I absolutely firmly believe that people are craving a certain type of authority, and they have the higher BS meter to how easy someone can fake authority, if you will, fake their expertise.
Right.
And they're looking for someone that is now more than ever more credible and can demonstrate more results. And that's a whole world that we can unpack, but I wanted to give you an example. So those principles will never change, but maybe the way in their importance or value, or the way they need to be expressed in the marketplace, absolutely is constantly in flux.
Okay. Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I want to dive into what these principles are. What are these principles?
Well, I think there's a lot that's at play. And that's one of them, what I like to call just principle of authority. There's another one that I love to play around with. This is a great example, which is this was documented and talked about in Dr. Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. Mm-hmm. And it's about the principle of reciprocity.
Okay.
And and obviously we talk about this and we use the word "ine," which is another beautiful way to look at it. But the whole principle of reciprocity is this notion and idea of, I think we can look at it a couple of different ways, like giving first. What he documents in the book is this notion, this idea that you give to others. There's a sense of feeling indebted. It's not that you want to make your people feel like, oh, you owe me.
Right.
But part of our free content is that law of reciprocity in action right there, manifested right there, is that giving first and to receive.
Right.
And so that can play out in so many different ways. But, I tell people how important it is that you're giving more than you're receiving.
Yeah.
In terms of value, in terms of support, in terms of that like I'm always looking, right, to be on the surplus side of that ine or reciprocity. So that's an example of one.
Let me add something in there too, which is we just released a podcast episode today talking about communication. And one of the things I told people is like, look, usually in your communication, if you can give the other person what they want, by default, or the way it typically works out, is you get more of what you want. as well. And I think so many people, even in our communication, we have to take that principle into account. So like if you're having a one-on-one conversation with your spouse, for example, and you just want to reiterate why you're mad or your perspective against this and it's battling against theirs, if you just stop for a minute and you hear their perspective and give them a little bit of what they want and a little bit of understanding, they're way more likely to now give you what you want. So that principle, I mean, it manifests all over the place. It's not just even in your business. It's even like, it could be with your messaging, with your communication. It is this, that one I think is just a principle of life, not even necessarily business in general. That one to me is a huge one.
Huge, because, you know, if you just look at it as simple like this, back to business, is I have the experience time and time again, and everyone here listening who has their own online product-based business should have the same experience from your audience. And it should be this thought that your prospect has where they said, wow, I just got this for free from them. Yeah. I can only imagine what I get when I actually give them money. Right. And that's exactly what you want to do. You know, you want, and again, that we can get into a whole world of value, because value is very subjective. Yeah. And you and I can have, you know, a 2-minute video that can be 10 times more valuable than like an hour of rambling and bumbling along. Right. Yeah. So these go on and on. I'm going to give a couple others really quickly here. You know, a real simple one is just, you know, I don't have an official name or title for it, but is the idea and understanding that what we sell solves problems. Yeah. Right. So we are in the problem removal business. So, you know, a lot of people have this fear of when's the other shoe going to drop? This is just a fluke. I had my first launch or win or whatever, and I don't know if this is going to last. Or some people double down, like I'm going to be the TikTok person, or I'm going to be the Facebook ads person. And they're like, what if this goes away? What if this goes away? And again, I'm just going to say 15 years. I can imagine if I looked back for the last 15 years of my life and all I was doing was being driven by that fear, and how silly that would be today, because what I see is more people and more problems. Yeah. So as long as there are problems, you have a business. Yeah. And we are in that problem removal business. I'm going to give you a couple more that are really important. I love the entire principle around urgency. Scarcity and urgency are powerful principles. Those will never go away. Right. The way in which we maybe utilize these principles changes all the time. Okay, that's fine. But real, true, authentic urgency and scarcity are powerful motivators. And it's because people, this is also, you know, science documented here. The brain consumes more calories than any organ in the body. And so in an effort to preserve calories, people avoid thinking. Right. And that includes making decisions. And that includes making decisions about whether to work with you or not. And so if they can put it off, they will, as a pure way of conserving and preserving energy. And so interestingly enough, I don't want to go further down this rabbit hole, but chances are the reason that your prospect is in the problem that they're in, which is why you have a business, because you're in there to solve that problem, is because they've been avoiding making a decision. Mm. And so when you have some form of scarcity or urgency, it creates an environment that forces a decision, not forces a yes, forces a decision. Hey, in this environment, you have to decide yes or no. And that's such a gift for people, because a lot of people have been living in limbo. They've been living like sitting on the fence. So that's a powerful principle at play. And then I guess I kind of bracket this as a whole world, but I'll put it into a principle for now, but it's the principle of direct response. And I think this is a huge thing that is missing for so many people. So many people are so caught up by the veneer. Okay. It's like the facade. It's like you go down I don't know, what comes to my mind is the old Western town with the fake front facade of the buildings. Right. And they're so caught up with that, they don't see what's happening inside or beneath the surface, or, you know, I'm mishmashing metaphors together. But everything that we're doing, and I know you and I have had these conversations before, is it doesn't matter what niche we're in. Right. It doesn't matter if you're selling a course, membership, digital product, one-on-one coaching. Our business is a direct response business. And I'm worried that when I say this, majority of people don't, whether it's your podcast, mine, or whatever, don't even know what that means. And you know, it's a whole world to unpack, but we're not like Coca-Cola or Apple, right? Putting billboards on the road here with our logo, you know, or just holding a product in our hand and us smiling. Yeah. You know, we are using words to give a call to action, to ask people to make a direct response to our words. Yeah. Every time we do something, even if it's leave a comment below, or click here to read this email, or open this email, or click here to register, submit your email here, or watch this video, or go to this page, or sign up, or go to the checkout, or upgrade, or click yes, or get instant access. All of these are direct response. And that means everything that we're doing is intentional at moving people to take the next step with you.
Right. And I want to be very clear about something too, is when you're saying direct response, there's multiple direct responses that need to happen in order for someone to get to the sale. It's not like they're going to drive down the road, see a Coca-Cola billboard, then be in the grocery shop later, like buying something else, and then see a Coca-Cola and be like, yeah, maybe I'll consider it, like, because the brand's top of mind, or like I need Coke and or soda and I'm just going to pick Coke. It's like, when you're in the online space, you have to do everything. You have to you have to create the traffic, you have to convert the traffic, you have to do you have to do all these steps. And in order for someone to actually buy from you, it's a direct response, a direct response, a direct response. It's like, hey, they need to watch this content, then do some kind of call to action. Then they need to opt in, and then they need to like show up, and then they need to buy, and then they need to do whatever. It's like over and over and over again. And if you don't focus on the direct response or mastering how to get people to directly respond to what you are trying to get them to do, it's going to be a very difficult road for you to go on this journey.
But it's so important to keep that in mind, because if that's what we're operating from, is this principle direct response, then all of your copy is designed to elicit a response.
Right.
And that's not what a lot of people are doing. They're just talking at people, or they like how they sound themselves. I like the sound of my voice, or I went live and I got all this attention and I'm getting popular. And you see this. We've seen this with the influencers and all these people that have millions of followers, but they don't really have a business. It's like, because that's not a direct response. Because
they're going after attention, but they can't get anyone to do anything.
Yeah, and they're not even trying.
Right, yeah.
It's more like, look at me, I'm the hero. And the direct response is, no, you're the hero, and I'm here to help you. Yeah, it's such a difference, right? So I want to give an example of this so people can really hit this home. I moved to Sedona, Arizona in like February of 2020, right? Like right before pandemic hit, and it was an accidental move. I was just setting up an Airbnb and I went there and I never left. Okay. And within the first week of being at my property, I get this letter in the mail, and it's just like a normal envelope, but it had writing on it, like special deal inside or something, like, and it was written in like printed red ink. And I was like, oh, cool. Someone's using some direct response marketing campaigns here. I open it up and it's a letter. I mean, just like a sales page. And it starts with some headline of like, welcome to the neighborhood, new neighbors get 15% off their blinds. And it goes into this whole thing about, if you've just moved here and maybe you're not from Arizona, the heat and the sun out here is more damaging, and it's so important to have the right shade. And, you can buy the wrong shades and the cheap stuff at Home Depot that doesn't last, and blah, 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 blah. So you can, you're going to get a free consultation from me. I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to do all the measurements. I have all the samples in front of me, and you get to choose, and you'll get 15% off of your order, just as a special way of thanking you. Click here to book your free appointment now. Well, this is a gentleman by the name of Dan. It's in the shade is his company name. I have now used him for every single home that I have out here, which is 5.
Right.
And he now gives me you're the VIP special treatment per discount on all my properties, and I recommend them to everybody in town. And I told him immediately, this was amazing. I loved your marketing. This was so powerful and so simple. Yeah. And it was eliciting a direct response like, hey, you're struggling with this problem. I have the solution. Here's exactly what to do to get it.
Well, I'm going to add one thing into that, which I thought was really great, is he actually started with one of the other principles you talked about, which is problem removal. So he created a problem, or made you aware of a problem he made you aware of a problem you're going to face. And then he moved to the solution, which is what I preach to all of our students and listeners, is that like, we don't start at solutions, we start at problems. And that's exactly what he did. He didn't start off going like, hey, look, we have shades that are the best and the most last the longest and da-da-da. He's like, hey, I didn't know if you knew this or not, but there's this big problem with sun in Arizona and it will destroy things. And so he's bringing that awareness to the problem. So he's actually...
I would actually want to go deeper with that. The way I teach it is start with symptoms and then lead to the problem. Yeah, because I think the problem with the word problem for a lot of people, and I learned this the hard way, is this concept I talk about called the curse of coaching. And the curse of coaching is defined as this notion that great coaches make bad marketers. And the reason is, and you have to train yourself out of it. The reason is what makes someone a great coach is their ability to get to the bottom of something.
Right.
They can get to the root cause. Now, the problem is the more the coach knows about the root cause, the more they use that as their marketing, as their sales mechanism, as their positioning. But chances are the very person that needs to get to the root cause is completely unaware of the root cause.
Right.
But what they are aware of are the symptoms. The symptoms are the cause and effect. Cause, effect. Root cause is what's causing the issue. Effect is the symptoms. This is how it manifests. So when we lead with, here's what you're experiencing as dis-ease, uncomfortable, an uncomfortable experience, emotion, environment, situation, we can then lead people to say, and here's what's actually causing that.
Yeah.
And you're taking people further and getting them to say, oh, it's this, that's the cause. And that's boom, but anyways, I go off.
We talk about the same thing. We just use different words for it.
Yeah. I know we do. And, but that's why I want people to, cause a lot of people come in and it's like, well, the problem is they have unhealed childhood trauma. It's like, but they don't know that.
Right.
And if you just say, are you struggling with your unhealed childhood trauma? It's like, I don't think so.
I would even argue that still is part of the solution. Because then you ask them, what do you do? Well, I heal childhood trauma. So they're like, even in that explanation, it's stemming from the solution. It's not stemming from where the person actually is, which is they're at a problem. And that's where we want to start with.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have five of the principles right now, which is authority, I'm gonna mess up that word, reciprocity, problem removal, urgency, scarcity, direct response. Are there any main ones we want to tack onto that? I
mean, there's so many more. I think when I originally flushed these all up myself, I came up with 15 or 16. I didn't know we were going to go talk about all these. So I
didn't either, but I'm glad we did.
I know it's great. It's great. But I can go more. I can think of a few more off the top of my head, but I want to stress that the reason I'm bringing these up for your listeners is to understand that what we're sharing here will not change.
Yeah.
And what I get concerned about is too many people are focusing, they've made the unimportant important and the important unimportant. And I think that's why people's lives and businesses don't work.
Right.
Is we've misappropriated the value and importance of certain things. And I think we put too much importance on the latest tactic. Oh, well, did you hear about this person whose business blew up overnight? What are they doing? Oh, well, they're on TikTok. Oh, okay. How many people do we know that are on TikTok and they can't get past 50 followers, right?
Right.
So, or they have a ton of followers, but they don't really have a business around it. So these principles are so important and they'll never change. So, one of the other ones from Influence, Dr. Cialdini, is what he calls commitment and consistency. A variation of that is the notion of micro commitments. That when one person takes one step in one direction, they're more likely to continue taking steps in that direction. They give an example in the book, if I can recall it correctly, about people putting signs of who they're either voting for or supporting for in their front lawn. And, this like, will you do this? Yes. Okay. So then will you sign this petition? Yes. And they align further in that. And so you see that a lot in great marketing. Like when you do a 2-step opt-in box where it's like just a button, you click that and then you submit an email. That tends to 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, massively increase your conversion rate because it was an easy, smaller first step, which made the second step, opting in, even more aligned, And so these things are at play all the time and will never change. It's human nature, right? Even just the notion of the core motivators. So I'll just run through a few of these. Is that people are motivated primarily by 2 things: to move towards pleasure and away from pain.
Right.
And we also know that people are wired, and this is the, reptilian, old school part of our brain, are more wired to focus on threats and pain and are therefore more motivated to move away from pain than towards pleasure. And I think it was Tony Robbins that gave an example. It's like, if I gave you an investment strategy to make $1,000 this week, or someone just stole $1,000 right out of your hands, which one would motivate you more? right? To chase down the guy or go towards the new investment strategy. And that's an example of how we're wired. So, yeah, that's just a couple, and those will never change. But the way in which we bring that, out, the way in which that's manifested, the way in which we put that all together and experience will constantly be in flux.
Okay, so I have like 7 of them. I know there's 15, and I'm glad you went here because there are core things, no matter what's going on in the world, that are always going to help you build a business, make more sales, build a bigger audience, stuff like that. But right now there is shifting going on. There's a lot of change in the world. Like, I almost feel like a broken record saying that because everyone and their mom says like, wow, the world's crazy right now and so much change. Like, we're all aware that there's a lot of change. Mm-hmm. And I think what I've been experiencing is that the old ways of marketing that we've done, things like video series, or sometimes even like evergreen pre-recorded webinars, have lost effectiveness a little bit. Like, they still work. Well, let me put it this way. They're almost staying the same, but there's other things that are happening right now that we're doing, and I know you have done, that have elevated the results. And I do believe it's because of what's been going on in the world. And, some of that stuff is like live launching, more workshop based things, more like working with people before the sale, have been trending for us. And I know for you as well. I want to transition into what that is and why do you think that's happening? So
yeah, I want to speak to this, and obviously I'm on Brandon's show, so I can get a little weird for a moment. Yeah, it's been interesting times, and it's been a time the last couple of years. No one could deny this, of massive change, and almost every single time that I end up talking about what has happened over the last couple of years, when I'm with an audience, I ask them, how much growth or change lessons have you had over the past 2 years? And it's like this unanimous, like all the hands go up, and it's just been this experience collectively for people to shift, to grow, to, wake up to gifts, to spirituality, to what matters in their life.
Right.
And that is such a beautiful thing. I mean, it is so beautiful. Like, the amount of new businesses that were started, the amount of toxic relationships that were ended, the amount of people stepping into a purpose or finding new meaning or fixing something that was just wrong in their life has been unprecedented in the past couple of years. And so what I feel is that people are hungry and they're craving for something more. Yeah. Okay. They're not just looking to like learn guitar or how to start a business. They're actually hungry for more, and they're craving more depth and more. They want to go deeper. I'm feeling that more than ever, because that's the journey like you and I have gone on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whether it's a spiritual journey or personal development, like, we go deep and do that deep work on ourselves to grow. And there's a lot of times when I talk about this stuff in the past and people just shut down and didn't want to hear it. They're like, just tell me what to do in my business and don't tell me any of this mumbo jumbo stuff. Right. And okay, and that's fine. And like, I'm feeling that pull and that crave from people more than ever. And they are looking to people that don't just have a result in their life. Like, look at me, I have money, because it's like people are definitely jaded by the veneer of authority. Right. Like, congratulations, you can rent a Lambo for the day or rent a nice fancy Airbnb. People are just, and rightfully so, they should. They're looking for depth in a mentor or a teacher who can bring more to the table for them than just this how-to steps. Just the like, here's how I did this thing, and here's just 7 steps. And I know this just aligns perfectly what you've been teaching and saying, but I believe people are just hungering for more. Don't just give me like what to do. Like, I want to grow. I want to transform. I'm ready for a quantum leap. I'm ready to completely let go of who I was and step into the newest upgraded version of myself. And I'm feeling that. I'm seeing that. People are so hungry for that. And that is such an opportunity for people to go deeper in their content. And I started talking about a variation of this a couple of years ago. It was 2019. I started talking, and I know it's almost a contradiction in a way, so you got to hear me out, of how important us as a coach and our coaching skills is going to play into what we do, in that, you know, the coach is able to go beyond just saying, well, I told you the 7 things to do and you didn't do it.
Right.
Okay. I gave you you bought my program. Yeah, I gave you it step by step and you didn't do it. The coach is able to find out why and shift behavior.
Yeah.
And cause a result from them. And that's what people are looking for. People are like, I know I self-sabotage. I know I'm overwhelmed. I know I'm stuck in this imposter syndrome. I know, and I need someone now that doesn't just tell me what to do, but can get me out of that so I can be that person. And so people are like, you know, the radar is up for who they're looking for and who they want to stay away from. And they want more of a feeling and more of an experience. And when we switched to the live launch, you know, we went from these fancy, I mean, best videos on the internet.
Yeah.
Personal opinion here. Total personal
Second
opinion.
to, I think,
sure,
ours probably, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. That would make sense that you would say that. So, but they were, I mean, we've spent, I mean, close to $200,000 and months and months working on these videos. Every line critiqued, every piece of content curated, and the effects and the quality and everything is entertaining. And then we just stepped out on a live stage and went, you know, hit record and went.
Right.
And it was a completely different experience. And I think people were in the energy and the feeling of what we were doing so much more. It breathed life, so much more life into the message, that people were on more of an experience. They got to experience it. And I always like to talk about energy, and, you know, so you need to have $1 million messaging. I mean, your messaging has to be spot on. You have to have an offer that people actually want. Imagine that. I'll go down that rabbit hole if you want. I think we've talked about in past episodes, but a lot of people have offers that are just, that's a bad offer. Yeah. No one wants that. And you could keep getting prettier photo shoots or following more TikTok trends. It ain't going to do anything for you. If no one wants to buy your stuff, no one's going to buy your stuff. Right.
Right.
So you got to have those things in place. But man, like if we're ignoring that energy component, which is even just what is the environment that we're creating? How are we leaving people feeling? What are we doing in this free experience that's going to change lives? Yeah. Then I think we're missing some really big opportunities here. You know?
Well, there's a couple of things that I like. A lot of stuff you're saying in the beginning is now coming together with what you're saying now, which, number one, you start off by talking about the first principle of launching was the authority. And you said people's BS meter is up at an all-time high. And I think what you're talking about now is like when you are intentional with the experience and the energy you put into something, and I think people subconsciously, they're making these decisions subconsciously. I don't think they're aware going like, wow, the energy, they might, some of them might, but most of them are they're feeling it. They're just like, there's just something different, and they can't actually describe it or put their finger on it.
You'll know it when they say something like, Brandon, I've heard that phrase or that sentiment 100 times, but when you said it, it was like it finally clicked.
Right. It was really interesting when we did our live launch. I asked them, I said, why are you guys here? Like, what is it? And I said this in the middle of like day 2 or 3. And I forget why we even talked about it, but I said, let's just do a test. Why are you guys here right now? You can go to anyone talking about messaging. You can talk to anyone about messaging, or like there's a ton of experts and people and gurus talking about messaging. Why are you here listening to me? And it actually kind of shocked me. But one of the most popular answers was your voice. There's something about your voice. Now, it wasn't my voice. It was the energy and the power and the confidence of what my voice is doing. It's the experience of what my voice is saying. It really is the energy behind what I'm doing. And you can't do that with a pre-recorded video series. I mean, you can, but not to the level of what you're going through here, because when we do something live, we get to work with someone. And when we work with someone, we release our superpower. We release the thing we have mastery in. We release like this deeper knowing that people get to experience. I believe to my core that what it's doing is people are becoming more aware and sensitive to energy.
Yeah.
And there might be people here that are like, okay, I'm not energy. I'd be surprised if you're not on board or understand what energy is if you're listening to this podcast. But just to kind of break this down, when my wife and I moved into this house that we're living in now, we went to every room and I said, Jacqueline, I just want you to write down what this room makes you feel like. What's the emotion you feel, or the one word. And we didn't tell each other what we wrote down, but we went into the room and what does it feel like? And we wrote down almost the identical word from room to room to room to room. Why? Because we were receptive of the energy. When you walk into a room and people are fighting, you feel it. Why? Because of the energy. Yeah. And to think that energy doesn't play a role in your launching, in your selling, is a massive mistake, because you're experiencing energy every single day, every single moment. And if we become intentional with it, we can alter the experience that people are having in our sales funnels. And like you said, or like I just said, I think what it is, people are just waking up. They're just so much more sensitive and aware of the energy around them. And if we can facilitate selling or launching mechanisms that allow us to be more intentional with that stuff, we just see higher results.
It is spot on. And I couldn't agree more. And, you know, it's kind of like the final piece, right? Like I almost look at all of this as like you're about to do a one-man or one-woman show on Broadway. Mm-hmm. The first thing you got to do, if I said, okay, I give you I'm the venue and I'm going to give you the contract where you can have 12 weeks with this one-man, one-woman show. First thing you got to do is you got to write your script. What is this show about?
Right.
And then you got to, you know, the script has to follow a process. I'm just going to write things and talk for an hour and a half and call it a day.
Right.
Which is what we see a lot of people. No, it has a sequence. It has a strategy. It has a formula. It's moving people. And then you got to practice it.
Right.
You know, and then there's that live performance. And no matter what happens, if no one shows up, if people leave in the middle or whatever, like you're on and you're doing that performance. And because you have everything else done and down and done right, you get to bring that energy, which is that final piece.
Yeah.
And that's the buy-in. That's what's going to get people to, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And I think for most people, you're absolutely right. It's unconscious to them in the sense that they can't put words to it.
Right.
I don't know what we hear this all the time. I don't know what it is about this person.
Right.
Or you just ask like, hey, what do you think about that? They're like, I don't know what it was. I just wasn't resonating. Right. What do you think that means to resonate? Right. Energy is just everything's everything is energy. So everything's in flux. So if it's in flux, it has a frequency.
Yeah.
And so people just talk like that all the time. I just didn't feel something off, right? So that main event, that opening night, that's you on stage on performance, and so many people don't put that into as a vital factor that plays a role in your success. And then some people only do that,
right?
And I have a real problem with that, where they're like, you know what, I'm just gonna go live and just whatever comes out comes out, and we'll see what happens. It's like, that's fine, but just don't be upset if it doesn't go your way,
right?
And so what you and I do so well, and it's not to like brag or anything, is just we just, you know, success leaves clues, and we want to help people, is both sides of that. And I know you wanted me to talk about the masculine and the feminine, and that's one way the masculine and the feminine manifests.
Yeah.
Is masculine is this strategy, this sequence. Okay. So for example, when I gave you the sequence that you were like, oh yeah, that's what we do too, is lead with the symptoms, or start with the symptoms and reveal the problem, the root cause. That's a sequence. You mess the sequence up, it's not going to do as well. It may not do well at all. It might blow up in your face, right? If you start your first live and say, I have a program, please buy it right now, here's the price and here's how much, and you start with that, it probably won't do very well.
Right.
So the strategy, the steps, the sequencing is the masculine side of it. Here's what to do. I mean, that's masculine. It's action oriented. It's outward facing. It's movement. It's more energy.
Yeah.
Right. It's go, 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 go. And if you're only in the masculine, you could be quite literally going through all the motions and the doing and be repelling people not even knowing it. And so the feminine side is the receptive side. You are receiving, you are calling in, you're being, like, the way I like to look at it is you are that light, you are that flame that attracts the people that are looking for someone like you to help them, that have been lost. You're the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And you have to be that for people as well. And that's, you know, it's like, that's why, yes, another way we're saying this is like people are being more awakened to the feminine side, the divine feminine side of things. And it's just energies. We're not talking about anything else, but we live in it's the law of duality, right? From the seven hermetic laws, there is a duality of the entire, I would at least say Earth, like the universe, but this dimension, at least, that's all I can speak to. You have up and down, left and right, good and bad. We have masculine and feminine. It's
the yin and the yang. Yeah.
And I think what we tend to notice, and I always have loved, and I think you and I are the same way in a sense, we're bridging that gap as much as we can for people. Yeah. We integrate both as much as we can, and we're both aware of it. No one's perfect. And sometimes I tend to go too masculine, and that means like, okay, I really have to slow down. I have to take a day off. Like, working for me in the feminine is like being in the stillness, right? Yeah. Because that's when you're in that receptive mode. You're creating that fertile ground for new thoughts, new ideas to come in.
Yep.
And what we notice, and what I want people listening to notice, is you tend to favor one or the other. I have an amazing dude. I don't know how much we've talked about him, Alex Palos. He's been on the show a few times. He comes and speaks at my events, and he does a lot with personality profiling. And he talks about you have this A player, and then you have the bench player. And so I want to use that metaphor where you have an A player, most likely, that is either the masculine or the feminine side.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're man or woman. It doesn't. That's irrelevant.
Gender doesn't come into this equation.
Not at all.
It's an energy.
You know? Yeah, there might be more common on one sex or another, but doesn't mean anything.
No, I'm a male, and I definitely live way more in the feminine. That's my A player, 100%.
Yeah, right. And so the A player is like who you normally put in the game. And then the problem is if you always bench your bench player, then you don't have the other side of it. And then there's a lack of harmony and a lack of balance. There's disharmony. And what I'm always trying to do is just incorporate both.
Right.
You know, it's not right or wrong, or one is better than the other necessarily. Business itself, tends to be a more masculine driven environment, but that's part of the shift that we're seeing. Is someone doesn't want to just work with the person that can do the most things,
right,
and buy the most cars.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying, is they want something deeper and more depth in what they're doing. And I was going to ask you, what do you mean by deeper and more depth? And I think, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, is they want more of the feminine side to go along with the masculine. They don't want to be just told, here's what you need to go do. There's this other invisible side that most can't see, because the masculine tends to be very tangible. Like, you can see it. You can literally see a framework on a piece of paper and the steps to go do. Yeah. The feminine is more of that like invisible thing that people can't quite put their finger on, which I think is why it's so hard for people to step into it. And I actually think even in your programs, like your courses and your programs, if they're not integrating both the feminine and the masculine side of things, the effectiveness of your program is going to start going down.
Yes.
And I think so many people are like, here's the steps of what to go do. And they take no consideration of who the individual is that's going through those steps. And are those steps actually right for that individual? And does your program facilitate that? And then we can bring it one step before your program, which is your marketing. Is your marketing facilitating that as well? Because if it does, if you can facilitate that in your marketing, then you start to see these huge results, which is why I love live launching, because I think live launching allows us to facilitate both the masculine and the feminine very powerfully.
Oh, I mean, with the live launch, and we can go down that whole route if you want in a moment, because I'm adapting and dancing with my audience in real time that you can't in a video because it's locked in and frozen. Right. I mean, it was filmed 6 months before. So we're sitting there and you're tuning and feeling, and things are coming to you in the moment because you're in that receptive, intuitive state where you're like, you know what, I want to talk about this. It's just like this podcast. Like, we didn't know what direction we're going to go. And then it's like, oh, okay, we want to go here. Boom. and you get to have a little bit more play in that.
Yeah.
And then I'm coming back and I go, okay, the next live is in 2 days. Here's what I'm feeling from the audience. Here's what I'm sensing. I need to add this. I need to remove. You know what? We already nailed this concept. Let's go to the next one. And that's so beautiful. It's more in real time. But to answer your question in a nutshell of what do you mean by going deeper? Well, I'm going to put the question back onto the audience and say, if you've been wanting to do anything in the realm of an online business or whatever your goal has been for, let's say, at least a year, 2 years, maybe more, and you haven't seen the progress that you've liked, I think number one, can we all agree that it's not a shortage of content out there?
Yeah.
It's not like, I just wish more people could teach me how to do this. So that's not the issue. So then we go, okay, so it's not, no one is giving me the instruction manual.
Right.
So then when you ask yourself the question, is there something deeper at play here? Is there something I can't see, perhaps, that's preventing me from producing the results that I want? And I think if I ask that question to someone who has been stagnant in results for a year or more, the answer is going to be unanimously yes. And we still lie to ourselves and say, no, I think the guru out there like is just holding the real secret close to the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just, they just haven't given me the real answer. And I'm telling you, that's the ego. That's the ego. And this is mind blowing, but that's how the ego has played a trick on you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because to go deeper means to change, which the ego does not want you to do. No change, because it bases its whole existence on its like certainty of itself and reality.
Right.
You go and change something, then you've like literally gone against its like very job. So it doesn't want to change. So it's going to say, no, it's not. And do not look within. How dare you look at me?
Right.
It's got to be something else you need to go do out there.
Yeah.
And you know, look, this isn't a black and white issue. Like I talk about this too, especially when I bring in Gregory Bateson's logical levels. You have these different layers of change that are required. And one of them is skills and capabilities. Okay. Look, this business requires skills. I can teach those skills. Brandon can teach those skills. If I say, you know, do you know how to play the guitar? And someone says no, and I say, here it is. Let's go start a band. It's not going to be a good band. We're not going to hit the top charts. No, because your skill sucks. But skill is something that anyone can improve upon. Will you be the next Jimi Hendrix? Maybe not. But if we practiced every day, are you going to get good enough that you could be in a band if that's what you desire? And people don't understand that. So skills are required and actions are required. And it goes deeper than that. You know, if we go up the logical levels, above skills and capabilities are beliefs. Now, belief is, I love this definition, but I changed it a little bit. The belief is a thought you continue to think. And I say, well, no, a belief is a thought that you no longer think about. It just is. You just decided. A belief is a decision point about reality.
Yeah.
And that includes you. That includes the world. That includes your market. That includes business. That includes money, right? So we have two types of beliefs. We have beliefs about what is, and then we have beliefs about what will be. So beliefs about is like, I'm a fraud. That's the imposter syndrome one. I'm a fraud. Right. So I am, right? And then we have beliefs that we are predicting the future. And this is all the ego and the reptilian mind wanting to create certainty out of uncertainty. If I go live, they're all going to call me a fraud. If I launch, they're all going to say this or do this. So we've decided who we are, who we're not, and we've decided how things are going to go. And we didn't understand. We tend to not experience these thoughts as thoughts, but as actual facts.
Right. Reality.
If you, yeah, exactly. If we believe that we're a fraud, like if that's a fact, and that if we go live, everyone's going to throw rotten tomatoes at us, no wonder we're not going to move forward. No wonder we're not going to launch. No wonder we're not going to go live. I wouldn't go live either if that's what was going to happen. But how do you know that would?
Right.
Right. And so that's what I mean that's a little sense of what we mean by going deeper is we have to look at those other levels of the logical levels than just actions and behaviors.
Right.
So at the bottom of the logical levels is environment. The environment is the byproduct, is the manifestation. By the way, I love my definition of manifestation that I heard years ago. When people say, what do you mean by manifesting? Well, if the entire universe is energy, then manifestation is the physical product of the dominant frequency that you've held yourself to.
I love that.
Right?
You created that definition?
No. That's what I use as my definition that I years ago.
James, that was good. That was good. I like that.
I don't know. Yeah. That's when people ask me, I say, but I first learned that from Abraham Hicks. It's
got it. Okay.
It's the dominant frequency. It's the physical byproduct of the dominant frequency that you've held yourself at. Right. That's boom. So then it manifests. So that's the environment. You go up from that and you have the behaviors and actions and habits, what we do in the 3D world, and that's where people have been stuck at. You go up again and we have skills and capabilities. The quality of doing can improve when you improve your skills and capabilities. You and I have been doing what we do so long, we're really good at it. We're not just really good at it, we're really good at teaching it.
Right.
So if you want to learn guitar, do you want to learn a guitar from a teacher that's been doing it for a year or who's been doing it for 15 years? You're going to learn faster because they're going to give you better teaching learning techniques through their teaching. You go up beyond that, and now we get into the beliefs and the values. And so much of behaviors is predicated by beliefs. Like I said in that example, if I believe going live or doing my launch means everyone's going to laugh at me, ridicule me, throw rotten tomatoes, punch me through the computer screen, I ain't going to do it.
Yeah.
So we align our behaviors to the beliefs because the beliefs, and look at the word belief, lie right in the middle of it. I mean, how beautiful is that? We believe that our beliefs are reality.
Right.
And then above that is we start to say, where does all this spring forth from? And the answer is you. And the you that comes after the I am. And those are, the I am are the two most powerful words we can ever utter. And who we are and who we say ourselves to be or who we declare we aren't becomes truth. And so much of our reality, our perception of reality, our context, which is the cognitive lens through which we see the world, springs forth from that. And that's why people talk a lot about identity, because if I'm not an entrepreneur, I'm just a broke employee. Well, then that forms your beliefs, your values. It determines what skills and capabilities you take on and improve or not, which reflects into your actions, which gives you the results.
So I understand these concepts. Obviously, like you and I have been down the same path for a while now. When it comes to the listeners and integrating these concepts into their business, I think there's two sides of all of this. There's one, doing it yourself, but are you saying also being able to facilitate that experience for your audience is required?
Yeah. So so you just teed this up perfectly. More and more people are becoming aware of these concepts, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so beautiful. And it's our job to assist people in applying them. For years, you and I have asked that question. How do you close the gap between concept and application?
Yeah. And
I believe the answer is us. And when I say us, I mean everyone listening. That's our role that's our actual role as a coach, as an online expert.
Right.
Not to teach something that someone didn't know. You can Google that. That's fine. But in the application of knowledge, the application of the concept, so that it's integrated and it becomes the new view. And I'm going to give an example of this because I did this whole series of my episode of this nightmare remodel disaster that I went through. I've talked a little bit about you, and I'll just give the one sentence headliner. Basically, I'm out of town at my team retreat and my phone's blowing up, only to find out that the second floor of my house is caving in on the first floor where our dogs are.
Oh my God.
I mean, I don't know what to freak out about. Like, are my dogs going to die? Like, what is happening here? Right. And, here's an example of how I wasn't applying something in my own life that I actually talk about. Now, because it's contextual.
Right.
Okay. So I've talked about this, this beautiful, it's ancient wisdom of you have to let go to let in. And I've done an episode on it of areas of my life where I had to let go first to let in. And most people do the opposite. We don't let go until something new has come in. For example, you don't quit your job until your business is at a certain level. But that's kind of backwards in a way.
Right.
Or you're unhappy in a relationship, but you say, well, you know, I'll leave them once I found the new person. It's backwards. Right. So here I was, and this person that caused this issue started causing other issues. And I said, I know I need to fire them. They've got to go. But I'm afraid. There's fear. Fear is our worst advisor. I'm afraid to let them go because I don't have someone else to replace them with. And it took me about a week and a half more of bumpy painfulness until I realized, oh my gosh, because we have to develop that level of self-awareness. I'm doing that thing backwards, where I'm holding on to someone that needs to go because I'm afraid I'm not going to get someone new. And this is no joke. This isn't an exaggeration. Within an hour of finally realizing that and firing him, I had the new person.
What? How did that new person come in?
I had the idea to text somebody that I've worked with in the past. And he said, I can get you a contractor there tomorrow morning to come look at everything. Wow. And then by the afternoon of the next day, that person I had talked to put a whole crew together. And I had 14 guys at my house Monday morning. So the firing happened Friday night. Monday morning, 14 guys were at my house, 2 different crews, plus I have 2 handyman and myself. And we got everything done in 4.5 days that week. Wow. We like Friday afternoon off. And more happened with more people in those 4.5 days than over a month. That is not an exaggeration. That is very, very accurate. And it was, I realized as soon as I let go, I let in. So why did I share all this? This is why is he talking about remodels and letting go and all that stuff? I'm giving you an example of how even in my own life with something I teach and talk about, I notice an area, I recognize an area where I wasn't applying it. And so what we have today is a lot of know-it-all newbies. Oh, thanks for that's the most I'm such a jerk, but that's the most common thing people say on your Instagram post. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah. Right. You know, like, oh yeah, I knew this, or they want to share it their way and stuff. And that's fine. That's wonderful. Okay. But it's a call to apply what we now know. Yeah.
It's the difference between knowledge and knowing, which
exactly. And because you don't actually know it until you've lived it. Experience is our teacher, not James and not Brandon. Right. Experiences. And it's so integrated and applied when you lived it. So like I literally have another example in my life where I let someone go and then I was able to let in so much more. Right. And now that's so much more power. And when I speak from it, by the way, now I'm speaking from my own experience. I'm speaking from more truth. And that's the other side of the coin. I'm just gonna be a little nasty for a moment, is a lot of people are just regurgitating other things that they've heard. And it will not, from an energy standpoint, it will not have the same impact because everything that you say comes with or has an energetic signature with it. And so I think what I see as my only advantage is I've just made so many mistakes and so many stupid decisions that when I speak today, I'm coming from so much experience. And my only difference is like, I'm such a student. That's part of my identity, is like, I'm a forever student. And just my value then is growth. Right. Is that everything in my life, I experience it as this is trying to teach me something and I want to learn it.
Well, I mean, obviously I believe and have grown my business in a very similar way as you have. And that's why we call our program New Generation Mastery, the keyword there being mastery. And we decided intentionally not to name it something to do with messaging, because in order to have effective messaging, we need to have mastery over it, over our craft. And there is a lot of, like you said, know-it-all newbies or people that regurgitate a lot of information that they hear. But when you're speaking from mastery which comes from experience, you just go so much deeper, and the energy in which you're like presenting or teaching or talking completely shifts and change. And I break it down into 3 different ways. Mastery is number 1, we need to put in the hours and the work, which is what you're talking about. The failures, the experience. Number 2, we need to be listening to our dharma, alignment, and our purpose. Like are we drawn to do? And do we need to pivot from what we're doing right now? Then we need, obviously the experience with it. And then we need the third element, which is improving change. Like how, because we have the experience, how do we improve the space or the dynamic? And when we have this, we're able to create such powerful communications. We're able to show up as a powerful leader, which again, I think we're just using different words to describe the same thing, but it all these things added up affect the energy in which you bring into a launch, into your content. And this is one of the hardest concepts for people to grasp, because it's so counterintuitive to what we've been trained to believe and think and do inside of the space. Everyone always wants to sell you the framework, opt in for this one thing. Here's the more steps of what to go do. And I remember when I first got into the space, there was an online person who's still really well known, was selling like the secret webinar formula or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I followed it to a T and my webinar bombed. And I'm like, what the F is going on? And then now when I get up and I do a webinar, I don't follow a framework. I just talk and I speak from experience. I speak to the problems and all these things. And the energy behind what I'm doing is incredibly powerful, and people experience all of these things. So when I want to bring this conversation before we wrap up is you've done an amazing job blending both of these together. When I look like the two things that I look at what you've created and what you do inside your launches and your program is you really are a master at building a business that's a machine, which I would call like the masculine energy. You're very good. And I believe you have to have that because it frees you up to spend the time in the feminine energy. And if that machine is broken, if that machine is not working, your time's going to be spent so much on the systems, the process, micromanaging, the doing, that you will completely neglect the feminine.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about because I think a lot of people are stuck there. A lot of people are stuck in building that machine. Where are the five? Like, I don't even know if there are five. What are those main core ingredients that people should be focusing on when building their business to free them up to focus on this feminine energy, the silence, the stillness?
Yeah. And you're so right. I've watched clients, you have the privilege of doing this for so long. You watch clients over the years and you're just kind of observing them and checking in on them. And I've seen clients, and there's no judgment. It's just you want to help, so stuck in the feminine that it's always about the new idea, the new creative thing. And so everything is about create, destroy, create, destroy, create, destroy. And it's like, there's no momentum.
Right.
There's, it's like a car that doesn't get out of first gear. And in first gear, the car's working the hardest.
Right.
When it's in fifth gear, that like you're on cruise control, you're on the Autobahn just flying and your RPMs are like your lowest and you have the best gas mileage. Right. And I want people there. Okay. So I love the metaphor of the machine when I teach it, because, and I was inspired by Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, because I always loved that. And I think that's what it was, is like, it's this big, like funky machine that's doing all these things. But at the end of the day, it's just a simple input and it's a simple output. And it's not you. You are not your business. And we have to separate you from your business. You're not an employee. You are a business owner, or rather a machine builder. And the machines can be as simple as an input and an output. And if there's an input and an output, there's a function. And I think a lot of people are just staying busy and not having any purpose or function within the business, right? So I say that there are macro machines. Remember micro machines?
Yeah, I do.
Micro machines, right? So there's the macro machine of your business, and then there are actually micro machines within your. My little nephew just got into micro machines. I'm so stoked because those were around like 30
I still have mine. I think they're the micro mini machines, the like little race car things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had all of them. I loved them. Like I'd get and now he's like 5, or I think he just turned 5. Yeah. And he's like, loves them. Yeah. So, so the big level is understanding that there's an input and then there's an output. So the output is the result that we want. Okay. So the output of any business, the primary metric is income, sales, profit, money.
Right.
It's money. Okay. And, sometimes that ruffles feathers or triggers people. Good. I'm a bit of a contrarian. I like to trigger you. I don't like to trigger you. I like to talk about the truth and what's real. And I like that ruffles feathers if someone has a different opinion. And by the way, they've actually done brain science and people go into a fight or flight response simply when someone shares an opinion that's different than their own.
Wow.
Right. And so you end up triggering a lot of people because they're like, no, it's not, it's like, no, it is. Okay. But then that's because people are bringing all their money, stuff, and stories.
Well, it's just so stupid too. It's like you run a business, and a business is designed to sell stuff, which means that you're taking money. So if you have money issues, if you think money's bad or evil, you're going to have a really hard effing time growing a business because the one thing a business needs in order to survive is money.
Money.
So maybe go get a job or something, which you can go do to get.
And that's the thing is like, well, I just want to help people. I can unpack all of that. It's like, well, first of all, you can always start a charity.
Yeah.
Okay? And then there's the other thing. Yeah. Start a nonprofit. But then also too is I look at all my testimonials and results, and my biggest testimonials and results, like 99% of them come from my paying clients. Mm-hmm. So great. I want to help people too, which is why I have paid programs so I can help them. Right. And if you're not doing the paid programs, right? If you're not paying, you're violating that sacred law of reciprocity. It's a one-way street of your outpouring and no receiving, and that will affect you. That's a violation of a sacred law. Right. I'm just giving. It's like you just want to be a martyr for people. Why? Right. So you can get significance or get people to like you. Yeah. There's just something a little off there. But when people pay, they pay attention. Right. And that's where you go, this is where I'm going to give my time. And look, people then have all that money stuff. And so they undercharge or they don't charge. And then what do? You feel guilty and you begin to resent your clients because they keep taking. Well, that's on you. Right. So it's a whole world there, but we could go down, we could do a whole episode on that, but we won't. The outcome is business. Of the business machine is money. Right. And the more, the better in terms of profit. It's a tool, that you get to hire people now. The more money you have, the more impact you can create. And so that becomes the second metric. It's income and impact. They are in a dance together. They're correlated because the more income that you're making or the more money you're making, the more impact you get to have. You get to spend more on ads to reach more people. You get to hire more people so you can do more things that you alone couldn't do because you're limited by your own resources and et cetera, right? You can improve the experiences of everything you do. Like we're doing a live event in 2 weeks. This costs like $80,000 to do the event, but it's a fulfillment event that's going to help a ton of people. More income leads to more impact. More impact you're creating will probably get you more income because you have that reputation of producing results. Right. So that's the output. So what's the input? Well, in the 3D world sense of things, there's two inputs, and it's time and money, right? Time is correlated to effort. Like if I spent 5 hours doing this, that's time and effort. I call that an energon cube, right? So it's an input of efforting over time. And the other one is money. So what a lot of people are doing, and I don't want to attract any of these people, so this is you, let's just don't bother reaching out to me, is they want the output without the input. Yeah. Right? They like, well, what if you don't have money to do Facebook ads? It's like, well, you got to get your hands dirty and go to work and build that audience. You got to put in the time. Well, what if I don't want to do that because I don't have the time? Then stop asking for the output. Right. It's like, basically, I just want someone to give me a bunch of money and I don't want to work for it and I don't want to invest and I'm not willing to put anything in. It doesn't work that way. Right. Sorry. So why we do this is we have to understand that we're building something that we put in something and we get something out. And to the degree in which that machine works is the ratio of what we put in versus what we get out. So if you put in 24-hour days for a whole year or 2 years straight, and you get $100 out, we've got a machine that's very ineffective, just to give an overly simplistic example. If you look at like where my business is, which is, I don't really count this as working, hanging out on a podcast with you, but if I'm working like 2 hours a day and it's a $10, $11 million a year company, we have built a very well-oiled, refined, leveraged machine that works great. Now, I'm not the only person in the business, so there's money and time and effort that's coming in from other people on the team. But for an $11 million company, we're 7 employees. Yeah. It's a lean, mean, profitable machine. So what I then look at is I say, well, we have to have these, what's happening in the Willy Wonka machine that makes that happen? Right. I just showed you an image of a machine, I could say, hey, look, I put in X amount of hours and dollars a day and look at all the money that comes out. You'd be like, what's in that machine? I want to know, It's like, well, I'm Willy Wonka. I can't give all my secrets away. No, but I will. I look at it as gears, and each gear I wanted to have as simple as possible. Like, this is the least amount of gears that you need to have in order to produce the result. So the 5 gears that we're focusing on, and each one, because it's its own micro machine, is offer, sales machine, attraction, back end, and team. So everything to me starts with the offer. Your offer is the quid pro quo. It's this for that. It's, I give you something in exchange for money. A lot of people are building businesses and they don't even have an offer. They don't even have a way for you to get paid. And then you got a lot more people that have an offer and it's just really bad. But you cannot get anywhere without an offer. Yeah. There's just no way. Like, no. Like, I promote other people's stuff. Well, that's an offer. Even when you're promoting somebody else, that's an offer. I just recommend products, Amazon products on my YouTube channel. Those are offers. They're not yours, but you get paid for it. So that's an offer. This for that. Right. So that's a whole world of things. The sales machine is understanding that in our world, no one goes to Amazon to buy coaching packages. No one goes to Amazon to buy an online course. No one goes to Amazon to buy a membership. So that is the sales process for Amazon. If you go, I need a new iPhone cover, you go Amazon.com, you type in iPhone 13 cover or whatever case. Oh yeah, reviews, read the description, look at the pictures, bought. That's the sales process for that $20 product.
Right. That's
not the sales process for your $1,000 program.
No.
Right. It needs a different process. And that's what the sales machine is. And then obviously if you have a great offer and a great sales machine, but no audience, and I tend to see this, they either have people that like know how to sell and they're amazing at selling, but have little audience, or people have huge audience and can't sell worth crap.
Right.
There's an imbalance happening. That's the attraction gear. We have to have my little secret is I'm just consistently attracting more audience. I don't have any, I am the freaking tortoise, Brandon. And I think you're very similar in that way. I'm the tortoise. I've never had this huge explosion of look, who is this guy?
Right.
It's like, I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. We add maybe 300 to 500 people to our email list every week. And it's just that consistently. When we measure all of our growth metrics every week, it's 1% to 2% growth every single week in the business. It's just one foot in front of the other.
Right.
And so I'm constantly building. The next 2 ones are the more like quote unquote advanced. You want to put those first 3 in place, but this is what really takes the business to scaling. Back end is a gear that to me is, or I call it ascension and back end. I switch those terms around. This is such an important conversation that most people will think is like not relevant, but look at the nature of things that are changing. You have more competitors than ever before and more increased ad costs than ever before. This is the external threats of the environment that is a threat to every single business owner listening to this episode. More people, more noise, more distractions, and higher ad costs. And if it's not to be worried about or to drain your personal power, stressing about it, not sleeping about it. But if you don't have your attention on these, as these are actual factual threats to your business, your profitability, your bottom line, then you have your head in the sand, and that ain't going to change what is and what's coming. The ultimate antidote to these, 100% ultimate antidote. And like, this is the conversation people don't want to hear in business, is LTV, lifetime customer value, which means instead of spending all of your efforts just constant, which is always the hardest and most expensive exertion of time and money, is getting new people. I need new people. I need more, instead of serving the people that are already in your world and going deep with them and spending more time with them. LTV is the revenue, sales, or value of a customer over that customer's life cycle with you. Yeah. Right? How much is that person worth to you over time? And the more you know that number and the more you increase that number, the more you're willing to spend to get someone into your world.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing, right? And we had a rep from Wicked Reports get on a call with my growth team recently, and they were blown away because we can track that.
Right.
I'm going to have to do an episode on this on my show. They gave us the numbers, and I'm not going to share them yet because I don't want to miss share because I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so I don't want to be wrong. But they were blown away by how long someone stays in our world and that LTV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is so important, like, and it's so powerful.
I have a question on that. When you say in your world, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I mean, like, is someone gets into your world, they get in, they become a customer. So when they join your first program, they're in your world. It's like, wow, look at Brandon's got this, and like, this is amazing. And like, it's like you have your own Disneyland. Right. And so they come to, you know, they buy a ticket and they're in Disneyland, they're in Brandon Land, they're in Lucero Mundo. And that's Spanish for world, by the way. And then it's like, oh, let's go to this ride. Now let's go on that ride and let's go do this. And they're spending more time in your world and say, I don't need anyone else because this person has what I need. And I finished this program and now I go to the next one and now to the next one. And so I stay with you longer. And I'm just going to hang out in Lucero, Mundo de Lucero, because he's given me everything.
Right.
Versus going, well, oh, I guess I learned a thing or two from this person. And then they're like, okay, but I'm still looking for my mentor. And they go back off to somebody else. And like, that's the biggest opportunity people are missing.
Well, it's interesting. Like, you know, I think you and I met before you even had $1 million a year business, or was like right around you hitting your first $1 million. I think we first met when you were doing 48-hour film school.
I think we met in December or November of like 2013. And we hit, it's so hard to remember all of it. And I think I hit $1 million at 2014 that year.
Yeah. So it's like right before then. And then obviously like another good buddy of ours, Jim Fortin, who got into this world a few years after we did.
I'm not a good buddy of his. I'm
not really. I was just, in case he was listening, I just wanted to be nice. But it's funny how our conversations evolve and what we talk about and our focus is on the business. For example, Jim just wrapped up his launch last week and he told me the number he hit. And I know he was kind of expecting something a little bit higher, but he said, you know what? It's not a big deal because I know we make $2 to $3 for every dollar we make on the front end. And he's like, so we will 3 times this amount of launch because of our back end process. And that type of conversation never really happened when we were just starting out. That focus wasn't even there because we were like, what did your launch do? Oh, it did 250,000. Cool. You made $250,000. Now it's like, okay, cool. Yeah, we did 250, but we're going to make like $1 million on the back end because we have that back end process. That's something a lot of people don't take into consideration. Even like, you do a launch and it doesn't go well and you had like 1,000 people opt in and you had one person buy, like send them another offer, sell that one person something higher. Like there's so many other ways that you can make money, but people get so stuck on the initial sale. If the initial sale doesn't hit what they want or do what they want, then they stop. And it's like, you have so many options to recover or to make more that you're not even seeing. So I'm glad you're talking about that.
It's, I mean, and again, it's a whole huge conversation because there's money everywhere. There's opportunity everywhere. And it's not just about being money hungry. It's look at it like this. It's like, it's so many ways to just help people and get paid to help people. That's what it's about for me. When I look at our LTV and they tell us like, wow, person stays in your world for so long and their LTV is so high, you know, first place I go is that I'm doing something right because I have more to share. And even when I can fully deliver on my promise, people know that there's more I have to share with them and they keep going on that journey. And that tells me I'm doing something right.
Right.
But there is like, we have to start looking at if someone is an audience member, like someone follows you or they get on your list, we have to look at them from this lens of they signed up to your email list or to be a follower of yours or a member of your audience because they do want to work with you.
Right.
And it's just a matter of unlocking that puzzle. How do they want to work with you? What is the right offer? What do they want to learn from you? How does that relationship go? And it's like, we put this first offer out the first time and no one buys. And we're like, it's because they hate me and I'm no good and ugly and I'm too old and all this stuff. And it's like, no, you just didn't give them what they wanted.
Right.
Like it's as simple as that. And I tell people, you want to make this all simple? You know, we can have an hour and a half conversation and go down all these nuanced things and talk about all this. And we can bring it back to this. Business is as simple as this. Attract your audience. Sell them what they already want. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And it's really as simple as that. Always. It's always as simple as that. And when I bring in this ascension conversation and distinction, I'm saying, and when someone is in your world, you sell them the next thing that they want. After you solve problem one, there's going to be another problem. Now that you know how to do blank, you're probably wondering, how do I do blank? And I want to help you with that now.
And the sale to that person's 10 times easier than the first
and
purchase,
and cheaper. And, you know, and I want to, the people I get to know and build a relationship, I want to just go deeper with them. I want to work with them. I mean, I'm very weird in that sense. Like, I'd rather just go deeper with all of my current students that already want to work with me than continue to be someone that's like, oh, let me just get more and more and more and more and more. It's like, no, I want to take someone from zero to infinity.
Well, that's why it's a part of the 5 gears of the machine, because it gives you way more output with requiring less input on the front end. So, okay. So all this makes a lot of sense. We talked about so much. We talked about the masculine, we talked about the feminine, we talked about the principles that don't change over time. There's so much stuff.
And I have one more gear. So don't let me forget that.
Okay. We'll do it. Go ahead. What is it? I thought we hit them all. What is it?
No, we had 4. We got offer, sales machine, attraction, ascension, and the last one, which, you know, we won't get into it for time purposes, is team.
Oh, right.
Team.
Most important one.
And boy, I'll just tell you this: it's the conversation everyone needs to have. It's going to solve so many of the problems that people complain about in business. I'm working too much. I'm doing all these little things. It takes so long, and and team solves all these problems. But it's the one that people just don't want to hear as a solution.
Right.
And, you know, hey, I had my first virtual assistant when I was still living at home and making a couple $100 a week.
Well, that's what people don't realize, is that even because the number one excuse I hear is like, I can't afford it. And it's like, you can't afford it because you haven't done it. And the team is what allows you to afford them.
Yes.
And then that's what I had to do when we hired Taylor. Like, I was in a pretty bad financial spot 4 years ago, even after having my most successful year. And didn't know what I was going to do. Got rid of everything. That's when I started the 4X effect. I hadn't even launched it yet. And I think Taylor, like on day number 2, like helped me launch it. Never doing it before, but that's where I was at. It was like, okay, I can't afford it, but I know I need to hire someone, and we did it. And then she's what allowed us to launch and scale and grow, and then be able to afford her and the rest of the team.
Yeah, and that's because people in business, like new in business, tend to put their time and energy on the urgent reactive things, and the urgent reactive things tend to be the things that don't really make money. Yeah. Which means you end up spending all of your day, time, energy, effort on things that don't make you money, which is stuff you shouldn't be doing. Right. Which is, so you spend all day doing things that don't make you money, and then you go, well, I can't afford to hire someone. It's because you've been doing all the things yourself that you shouldn't have, that if someone else you had hired had done that, would allow you to do the things that make you money.
Well, let me give you an example, or to the listeners an example. And this is when you and I first met, and it was right before we created Local Video Academy, and I was offering
Loco Video Academy.
I forgot about that. Loco Video Academy. Michael created that ad. That was so good. Michael Alaniz. We met at a coffee shop, and I was selling it I had a broken business model. Like, it was just making sales, but I was making no profit. I was working all the time. And so you gave me this new business model, which was, you told me, hey, charge like 3 or 4 times what you're charging now. And then on the monthly reoccurring SEO work, do monthly. Don't do a one-time fee, do monthly. And I remember sitting there going like, there's no way someone's going to pay that. Like, my own money issues were coming through. I'm like, there's no way anyone's going to pay this. And you told me, you're like, if you can make this work and make $10,000 a month, we can package this up into a program, and we can go sell this program. And I was like, okay. And that was the motivation I needed. Problem is like, to sell $1,000 video, it needs to be pretty good quality. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to use a DSLR. I didn't have a DSLR. I was using images and pan and scan videos back then. That's like how I was making the videos. And I remember, like, literally the next day, I just went from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant to restaurant to restaurant, trying to close a deal. And within 4 hours, I had closed a deal at $1,000 at $250 a month recurring. I made the money, but where most people are going to get stuck on is like, I don't know how to fulfill on this. Let me go like study YouTube courses and watch videos on how to make a video. Let me practice making a video. It's like, no, I went out and I made the freaking sale and I walked away with $1,000 in my pocket. And then I was like, okay, I got to fulfill on this next week. Now let me go buy the camera and let's figure out how to use this thing. And it worked out fine. But the focus is on making the money. The focus was on generating the sales. That's where all my energy and activities went.
So I hate to do this, but I just feel like I don't know if we've told the whole story. And I feel like we have to tell the whole story. Is this a great story? Is this a story of how we met? And you shared part of it. And I just want to fill in the gaps there because it was so awesome, because I had an assistant at the time. Her name was Dawn, and she kept saying, you need to meet this guy. And I was very at a like, I think I was working only a couple hours a day and then surfing. And I really it was me, Dawn, and a couple of virtual assistants. And, I was good. And I just really didn't want to meet anybody or, everyone wants to pick your brain and take you out to coffee. And she goes, no, you need to meet this guy. Here, look at his YouTube videos. And I felt like I was like looking at my twin brother. We were doing the same goofy antics and like slapsticky jokes and making YouTube videos about YouTube videos. And I'm like, who is this guy? He's like, all right, he kind of reminds me of me. I like him. So we met for coffee, and I had been teaching Video Traffic Academy, and people had kept coming to me and saying, James, do you think that I could do this for others and get paid? And I was like, I don't see why not. I've never done it like that, but wow, that's a great idea. And then I meet this branding guy, and he's literally saying, this is what I do for clients. What you teach is what I'm getting paid to do for clients. And I'll never forget, I just said something like, well, why don't you just go get more? He's like, or no, he said like, you said something like, yeah, I'm just not like at the revenue level I like. It's not really, like at the income level I need to make this sustainable. And I said, well, why don't you just go get more clients? And he goes, well, that's the problem. I don't have any room for more clients. I'm fully booked. And I was like, whoa. Like, you have something people are craving. They're all saying yes to it. You're fully booked, but it's not enough money. I was like, well, this is a simple thing. We need to raise our prices. And that's when I just said, raise the price on this and add a reoccurring revenue to it. And I said it so flippantly, like, I don't know who this guy is, and I'll probably never see him again. And how many times have I given advice to somebody and they never do it? And it was like 2:00 the next day, he texts me and he goes, boom, just booked my first reoccurring person at the new prices you gave me. And I was like, who is this guy? and that's, when I doubled down, I'm like, listen, dial this process in. And I know my students would love to learn it. And that's when we partnered on Local Video Academy. And that did multiple millions in sales.
Yeah.
Great offer.
Well, here it was a great offer. Here's the thing that I thought was really funny about it is that when you gave me that advice, automatically I was like, no one's going to pay this. Like, there's just no way. Like, I was looking at it through my perspective of what I would pay. And I'm like, I wouldn't pay that. I couldn't even afford that. A successful business owner would pay that all day long. Now, being one, I'm like, that's like nothing.
Yeah.
But the thing is I left that meeting and I'm like, okay, if James is, I had so much trust in you that I was like, okay, if James is telling me this, then that means it'll work. And I remember asking you, I don't know, it was like a year later. I'm like, why did you tell me those prices? Like, how did you know that was going to work? And you're like, oh, I had no idea it was going to work. I just threw it out there and see if you could get it done. I was like, okay. But I had complete faith that I'm like, oh, he knows this will work. So I'm going to go do it. And it turned into Local Video Academy. But
I mean, like, in my mind, I'm like, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's like, he can't take on any more clients and he's clearly undercharging. Let's like 4x the price, add a continuity and just see what happens.
I mean, it changed everything. We were doing like $14,000 a month, like within 6 months, just reoccurring. It changed everything for me. I think what I was doing too is I was doing exactly what you were saying that most people do is they focus on things that don't actually generate the revenue, like building out the website. I was getting it programmed. I was working on following that stupid webinar thing that didn't actually like work. Although I guess that could be argued as revenue generating. But I mean, I spent weeks working on this thing when I could have just walked out the front door, gone into a business, generated the revenue, then taken that and paid someone to do the website, paid someone to do this, and just repeat that process over and over again. So yeah, bringing it back full circle. But I know that you have a training coming up called, is it called The Rise of the Digital CEO? It's a live event?
Yeah.
And I know you're going to dive into, well, actually, why don't you tell everyone what it is? I know you're going to talk, you do a lot of the feminine work, you do a lot of the masculine work, you do a great job blending it together, but what are people going to learn?
Yeah. So this is a 3-part live experience. And, I'm going into 15 plus years of running an online business, and it's an 8-figure a year company. And the shortest promise of the training is I want to show you how I did it. And I tend to have a very counterintuitive way into how things are done, because what we do see is very myopic or singular lens through which people take when it comes to building their business. Like, here's this one thing you need, just this one thing. Like, if you just nail Instagram reels, you're going to build your business,
Right.
And that's where I kept falling for that trap myself. So it's like a recipe, like if you're going to go bake a pie or something, is a recipe. There's multiple ingredients and things you need. You can't just leave out one thing or just do one thing and expect to get that yummy pie or cake or whatever. So it's a much more holistic view in how to create the business. And it's designed through a lot of work we've done to create a really powerful process to self-diagnose where you're stuck, because business growth happens in stages. So when you can find out what stage you're in, and that's no, you could be the first stage, you could be the 5th stage, right? You get to diagnose like what's causing the stuckness and move yourself through it. And so that training really pulls back the curtain, and not just like more marketing, which is great, but how to actually run a business and how the business like this needs to be structured and created. And people are going to notice, like, there's a lot of these invisible things that I wasn't even aware of that's what's causing the issue, that's preventing me from getting the result. So a lot of times the cause is hidden, that's producing the effect, and the effect being the symptoms, the situation that you're in your business. And so we're going to do a lot to diagnose that so that you can actually grow your business. Because I think today we have a lot of people that have a course or want to have a course, but we don't have a lot of people that are making sales with their courses.
Right. And it's even more important in today's day and age, and with all the change going on. Yeah. So I know we've been sending our audience to your workshops and video series, The Rise of the Digital CEO, for like the last 4 to 5 years, maybe even more. And I've worked with hundreds of students that have gone through James's training. In fact, a lot of our students are people that came from your world. Right now, the live workshop that James has is actually not open for enrollment yet. So like to opt in and to register for it, by the time this podcast comes out, it's not open. What I want to do before we give you the link and have you register for James's training is I'm going to be putting on a special workshop that I really recommend that you go through before James's training to best prepare you for that. I was looking over what I've been able to do over the last 6-7 years in building a course-based business. And I've built over 3 7-figure brands and programs, and at least 4 or 5 multiple 6 figures in my own business, not including whose other businesses I have worked on. And in one of those we launched in the pandemic. I've launched 2 of them in the pandemic, but that both have turned into 7-figure products. There are some key elements that I want you to understand and to go through that I'm going to teach you in this workshop before we send you over to the Rise of the Digital CEO. So to register for that, I want you to go to brandonlucero.com/CEO workshop. Inside this workshop, we're going to get you best prepared for the Rise of the Digital CEO. I'm going to give you some of the stuff that we've done and some advice that you need to take right now if you're trying to build a business in today's day and age. So we have a double whammy of workshops planned for you to grow your business. So head over to brandonlucero.com/CEO workshop, and we're going to show you how to build a business in the middle of this ever-changing world. So James, thank you so much for being here with us for almost an hour and a half or 2 hours. I don't even know how long it's been, but it's been a while. So I'm really grateful for that. And do you have any final words you would like to leave our guest as we wrap up this episode?
The only final thought is if, we've gone this long, and for those that made it to the end, that says something about you your commitment to growth within yourself and your business. So I love that. I hear that, because today I just see more than ever people are distracted by 15 seconds of content and, squirrel the attention span. And, sadly, a lot of people don't want to take the time to do what it takes. They want it now. They want it fast. They're unwilling to do the work to get the end result. And, the things that we're talking about, we're not just like trying to fill time. Right. We're not just like, they're important. And if someone has stayed, it means they know that they're important too. And now it's time to start applying those things to your life.
I love it. Thanks, man. Thanks for being here, and thanks for sharing your wisdom with us all. And for those listeners, I'm excited to see you in our free workshop over at brandonlucero.com/CEO workshop. And then we'll get you prepared and ready for James's free workshop. Double whammy coming at you. So take care, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey, guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.